Welcome back. It's possibly the most critical year when it comes to South Africa's Monetary Policy Committee, as interest rates are set to perhaps rise or perhaps stay the same, depending on what the global situation is like. And if the ANC will have it, it'll certainly depend on what the ANC deems to be necessary, a combination of both fiscal and monetary policy. This week begins the first interest rates decision of South Africa's Monetary Policy Committee from the South African Reserve Bank, a significant one for many reasons. It may indeed be the last one in which we get 6 monetary policy members for the year. And this man, the governor of South Africa's Reserve Bank, has a tough task ahead of him. It is a time when the South African Reserve Bank needs to decide quite strongly what it wants to be held accountable for when it comes to the real decisions when it comes to South Africa's economy. So the governor, who of course has held this position since around the 9th of November 2014, his term does come to an end in November this year. Will he take a second term? That becomes the question for many to answer. On the second hand as well, you have the deputy governors, and one in particular is the Deputy Reserve Bank Governor Daniel Minele, who's also been there for quite some time. His term comes to an end in July. This will become his second term as Deputy Reserve Bank Governor. Will he take on another stint as Governor of the South African Reserve Bank? That as Deputy Governor, should I say? And if not, and if he does rather, should I say, in November, does that mean he could perhaps take on the mantle if perhaps Lesetja is then needed elsewhere? Those questions will all come to the fore, and those are massive permutations. But here's one who perhaps is leaving at the end of this month. Perhaps not Kuben Naidu per se, he is the newer one and has held the Prudential Authority position, or as we formerly knew it, the Registrar of Banks, and that is where he stood at present. He certainly seems to be staying his put and has faced a lot of pressure, particularly when it comes to the banking sector, which will face a whole host of competition going into this year. Francois Groep, possibly one of the most significant of them all, late in December deciding to resign as Deputy Reserve Bank Governor of South Africa. 14 years at the South African Reserve Bank, 7 of those as an executive, overseeing financial stability, national payment system, risk management and compliance, currency cluster, security management, a whole host of sectors within the Reserve Bank. He decided to leave and pursue outside opportunities. So this MPC meeting becomes his last one for the leadership of the SAB, and it leaves us then with about 5. But we did get the introduction last year of another member of the South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee, Fundi Chasibana, who is the advisor to the governor. She's held a whole host of positions, a lot of them in National Treasury as well, including the IMF also. So she could possibly stand in as Deputy Reserve Bank Governor in place of Francois Groep when he does leave the seat. But then we still need to keep adding members. Let's not forget that Brian Khan, a former advisor to the Reserve Bank Governor, also left last year. So that seat still needs to be filled. Rashid Kasim is the head of economic research at South Africa's Reserve Bank, and he is quite significant in that he will continue to aid South Africa's growth projections in accordance with what the Reserve Bank sees fit as well. Where will all these people vote is quite significant. That is the element that is important. After this meeting, there will be 5. Those will be the 5 left until, of course, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, announces a new deputy governor. It is his task. It will be his first executive appointment at South Africa's Reserve Bank, because remember that the governor and the deputy governors are all announced by the president. As I said, Fundi Chasibana is a former IMF Alternative Executive Director, also a former head of economic policy and forecasting, and Deputy Director General at National Treasury. She holds perhaps the key of where the South African Reserve Bank could go of late. Expectations are that the Reserve Bank will hold interest rates, but it is still a big question. Will it indeed remain at 6.75, considering last year's very shock decision to raise interest rates by 25 basis points? A decision that perhaps consumers may not have been entirely happy with, but one that the Reserve Bank felt they needed to do considering the global situation in which, of course, the United States had begun hiking interest rates. But with Jerome Powell, the Fed chair in the United States, deciding to perhaps ease off on how quickly they raise interest rates in the United States, perhaps this will not rise as quickly. And that's purely because we now remain attractive for perhaps a little bit longer. All we need to do is maintain policy certainty and ensure that our currency remains within the realm of possible investment, aiding South Africa's growth. All of those issues will become very pertinent. Of course, the ANC questioning the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank, although keeping forward and saying that indeed they will keep it as is for now, but the one thing they want them to consider is fiscal policy, meaning that whatever the current finance minister, a former Reserve Bank governor himself, decides to do will certainly impact on where this may go in future. All that and all those permutations will be discussed over the next few days, and on Thursday we'll have that decision for you live from the Reserve Bank.